morning. I swear a lot.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the book club. So, this one, Star of the City. I imagine this will be the longest one of all of them. Yes, I'm pretty sure this is going to be the longest one of all of them. I've already planned to split this into two parts because already, if we click on other, and there's a lot here. There's a lot here. Not going to fuss around with fancy intros or anything like that. I'm just going to delve right in. We will start. Honestly, we're going to go like this because I just won't. Where is... Oh, there's Alan. Okay, we'll start here. Hana Association seems to have taken an interest in the library and the Blue Reverberation, the two entities at the center of all of the problems that have been happening in Elcorp's Nest lately. Now that they've marked their presence in the city's sky as stars, I asked a Color who happens to be a friend of mine about it, and he said the association's going to recruit him to hunt down the Blue Reverberation and his cohorts soon. They've been making quite a scene in Elcorp's Nest. In particular, the lives of many syndicates, fixers, and residents close to the library were lost to their hands, so the association couldn't just sit and watch anymore. They've apparently set up a camp at the door of the library, though no one knows what they're waiting for. A couple other things I heard are all sorts of sounds and noises are coming from that camp, and that a large number of firearms belonging to the Thumb were abandoned on the ground. Maybe they launched an assault on the syndicate while it was still struggling to recover from the loss of the underboss and his capos. The ensemble's not like most syndicates, just trying to make money off the turf of the wingless nest, that's for sure. But we still don't know what their goals really are, and I can't shake this bad feeling. Anyway, since I was asked to pay a visit to the library, it'll be worth investigating the case some more after I get this job done. Ah, Dong Huan. You're a cool guy, it must be said, though Everett is cooler. Everett? I can't remember the name right now. But it's interesting, Dong Huan appears to potentially, it's not said for certain, but it's implied maybe that he was friends with the Vermilion Cross. And we all know how that turned out. Not well for the Cross. They proceeded to become the most interesting thing about that boss fight, which is pretty funny because, you know, there was an established character with them and the Cross hadn't been established at all, and yet the Cross was significantly more interesting, but hey-ho, a lot of those fights had problems. I enjoyed them. I definitely enjoyed them, but they weren't perfect. But Dong Huan, interesting fighting style with his weird blend between like being tanky as hell and also inflicting a heck ton of damage, or bleed damage, sorry, which actually makes a lot of sense. Just work your opponent down, I guess. If they die quicker than you do, then that's that. One of the only one-on-ones until you get to certain points in the game, which is quite interesting. I think he's one of the few, perhaps the first forced one-on-one fight. And it was interesting, I remember being quite intimidated when I got there. The message we got wasn't unexpected. The boss of our organization had always been a rash one, and he'd no patience with injustice or for his own curiosity. It was a miracle that he managed to stay under the Thumb for so long. I told him to be more careful since his words and actions as the boss will affect his underlings as well, yet here we are. I thought I'd flip my lid at hearing the news, but I didn't feel as much anger as I expected to. The only thought that came to my mind was that he'd finally done it. With my head cool, I calmly considered my next move. At least some of us will make it out of here thanks to the early warning, and straight into the library. Whoops. That wasn't smart, was it, buddy? But yeah, the Night Owls were the ones... I can't remember what specifically it was. Either they said something stupid, or they just didn't show up and they were like, fuck them. I think they said something stupid. The guy got bodied on the spot, and then they were like, kill the rest of them as a warning, and the rest of them were like, nah, I'd rather not. But the Night Owls were actually really cool. I really liked them. They had some of the best combat pages in the... maybe not best, but probably some of the most useful combat pages in the game. If you wanted to run a Pierce build, you went to these guys. Alan himself had a great page, like, as well. His passes were great. He had that Stiletto combat page, which was very cool. And the style, lest we forget, the style. Very cool. Very goddamn cool. It's usually a good idea to zip your mouth shut at a gathering of Thumb subsidiaries. If you don't have any good suggestions to make, shutting up is the next best contribution you can make. Can never be sure if what you're about to say is a good opinion either, so just sock it in general. In other places, mistakes would just cost you your own life, but losing your credit in meetings like that means the members of your syndicate are also biting the dust. What did we do wrong to deserve the punishment for our boss being a moron? Well, yeah. What did you do? Not a lot, but... I suppose that's how the Thumb runs so solidly, is that just hard discipline. Real harsh discipline. And that's what kind of surprises me, actually, is like... Because the Thumb's discipline is clearly well established by this point. You know, like, they're not exactly a new player on the board. They've been about for a while. How the hell did the boss of the Night Owls, like Alan even mentions it here, how did he manage to get to where he was being like that when surely he would have had his arm taken off at the very least at some point, and most likely would have been killed prior to now. And as a result, not only did he die, but all the Night Owls got screwed over as well, which was probably not very good for the Thumb because the Night Owls were quite tough, and they probably could have used their help. But, you know, discipline. We are Ujat. While it's a grade 1 office on the surface, we only receive requests from one person. It exists for Lady DS and Lady DS alone. We are ready to perform any feat she demands. Her pure ambition will bring her to a position of great power one day. We simply serve as stepping stones for her ascent to the top. Who the hell is Lady DS? I can't even begin to know who Lady DS is, but that's a player. Apparently that's quite a strong person on the board. These guys were cool, very cool. And one of my mild, like, just idle fancy suggestions for the new Ruiner series based on trying out cards and stuff is to be like, what would happen if we ran like a full Ujat team with everyone running damage protection cards and stuff, you know, like Ready Up and all that. Could you basically just make an immortal team that can never be killed because they just don't take enough damage? If you throw a Mirene page in there as well, or even just her passive, surely the entire team is just invincible. That's something I actually want to try at some point soon. But yeah, Ujats are cool. I like them. That drip is fantastic. In this city, money has more value than anything. You need money to be able to start anything. Money is also required in case of unexpected events. An accident that will cost you a great deal of money could happen at any time. Insurance is useful for such cases. As long as the conditions are met, the payout will fill in for financial damage. Of course, not all accidents will fit the insurance's bill perfectly. There are insurance plans for fixers, associations, and even wings. On top of secondary insurance an insurer can take, it would take a long while to list all the insurance that exists in the city. There's a wide range of carriers and plans to choose from, each fulfilling the needs of a different type of individual or group. Apparently I can't read. You never know what danger awaits you. So what, these guys are just insurers, lawyers, basically. I bet I can tell how insurance works in the city. I bet they go so goddamn specific, where it's like, I've got an insurance so that if my arm is melted off with acid, they will pay me for my new arm. And then it happens and you go to them and they go, oh, your left arm was melted off? Oh, you only insured your right arm, so we're not going to pay you. Yeah, I can see this being a thing. But these guys were interesting and pretty cool. Did you know many people whom insurance companies employ are those who have experience with detective work involving investigations and deductions? Since we can deal with huge sums of money, there are more than a few cases where our clients deliberately harm themselves or lie to us in an attempt to commit insurance fraud. A considerable number of calls we get aren't mere incidents. How do we tell apart a real accident from the fake ones then? That's a business secret. Well, maybe a little hint. Oftentimes, something will be off about the way they act or talk. I told you that folks who used to do detective work frequently jump over to our industry, right? Those armchair fellows certainly have their wits. Their keen eyes will catch the signs hidden in even the most elaborate of disguises. They say the terms can be a little too particular, but I disagree. When handling that much money, it doesn't hurt to be thorough with inspecting and determining the validity of cases, right? If people started reaping insurance payouts for the smallest things, our business wouldn't survive. You'd be surprised to learn how many people in the city still cling to the idea of get-rich-quick schemes. Yeah, basically confirms what I just said, that, yeah, I bet those insurance deals are really goddamn specific, but it's interesting to hear that a lot of detectives, like probably previous 7 association members, head over to insurance companies because they're the best type of people to figure out if someone's telling the truth or not. Arena is really cool. I wish we could have used her a bit more. Maybe I'll feature her association on the show as well, because I just never really got to play around with her cards properly. I think I did like one build and it was pathetic. Like, actually pathetic, like I got virtually nothing out of it. Insurance benefits, policy form. Yeah, see, these are decent, as it were, but they don't really play into discard. This does, of course. Multi-party compensation does, and it's a really good one, but it's only available to Irina, which means the amount of times you're actually going to get to make use of that is limited. Especially since you can only have one. Which... oh, that's really unfortunate. Yeah, Star of the Sea. Should I have a quick little look? switcheroo. These are fine, but I just couldn't get it to work for me. But someone in the comments for that video did point out that I haven't really played with a late game discard deck yet, and I would like to. I think that'd be a cool idea. Leaflet's Workshop. It's a good place. Offers serviceable weapons to fixers at a reasonable price and sells quality weapons to underground syndicates at higher prices. There's been cases of the opposite happening sometimes, but that's not what matters. Just wanted to emphasize that people from all walks of life visit our workshop. Oh, and I heard some workshops have membership clubs. The select few chosen by the workshop's owner are sent an invitation, or so I heard. Business would be much handier if we adopted the same system. As with everything else, greeting guests is the one thing that's more dangerous than developing new weapons when you run a workshop. This is something I would want for my fixer game for sure. This would be a massive aspect of it because it would be a pretty simple system, honestly, and one used in games before this one, and, well, it's never going to get made, so before this one. You know, you can get fairly standard gear, even some pretty good gear, just from buying from standard sources or taking from your fallen opponents, what have you, maybe a chance of getting a workshop weapon, but I think we'd have to introduce some kind of system where it's like not every item that your opponent has you can take from them, like stuff gets destroyed. Like Battle Brothers has a good system on that front. If you just smash the hell out of your opponents, you probably won't get to salvage their armor because it'll probably be broken, and the same would go here with the workshop gear. You might need to destroy that guy's workshop shield in order to kill him, which means you're not going to get the shield. Either earning a reputation with workshops, doing favors for them, paying them, or just becoming so prominent that they want to work with you, I think would be a solid addition to the gameplay mechanics, and perhaps means by which to, you know, get cheaper deals, and perhaps even be able to be involved with a bit of the corporate espionage between workshops that I'm sure exists, where it's like, well, sell secrets from this one to that one will hate you, but this one will give you a discount. Mild ideas, but yeah, getting the ability to perhaps have custom-made weapons far into the game at extremely high prices, which could be really the difference between you being a grade 1 and being a color, would be very interesting. A friend of mine who was trained in the same workshop as me told me about this place, said some new tech was discovered recently. Something about tinkering with the mind to use it for your advantage. It's apparently more powerful than I can ever imagine. I'm honestly not very good at forming an impression of something when I just hear or read about it, so I told them I don't get it, and then they said maybe going to the library would help. They've been researching this new and exciting technology lately, but they say they're too scared to head into that place even if there's vital information to be found. They weren't the kind of person to get physical, so I understand. Thus, I told my buddy that I'd visit that place for them once I'm finished developing this one thing. There's a new gadget to test anyway, and to witness a technology that's still obscure and hot off the presses, that just makes your heart throb, doesn't it? So I'd have to assume new tech, something about tinkering with the minds to use it for your advantage. I would imagine this ties into Yai's, pure speculation, Yai's page of her passive attribution, if I can just find it real quick, Madness. Because just being insane is not really enough to give you buffs. This must be, I mean, pure hypothetical here. I'm sure someone will come out with something that proves me wrong. But this must be like, yeah, I don't know, maybe it draws on certain emotions, or it's brought on by like adrenaline or a calm state or what have you to do various things. It's obviously not been refined very well, which is why there's a chance to gain fragile and why the buffs are completely random. But it's an interesting idea, and Madness is a very good passive attribution, to be honest. And it's interesting to see that almost kind of be explained, where it's like, oh yeah, we're developing stuff where you can literally use the power of your brain. It's pretty neat, you should try it sometime. Of course, I was about to say now it's in the library and no one will ever know about it, but of course Yai, alongside everyone else, spoilers for the game, are now alive again, so they can go do what they want. I'm sure it'll end well. Charles' office, the place Renard worked, was popular among fixers. It was the subject of a lot of gossip, for good reason, as it was a grade 1 office consisting of just a few elites handling any request with ease. People would often wonder exactly what kind of fixers were in that office. All we know about the office is that its fixers wore luxurious clothes, and the office interior was fancy as well, in a style unique to the northern side, and that there were 12 fixers led by someone called the Captain. And they've all parted ways now, living their own lives. That's about it. Outside of Renard, the person who helped us, we've only ever seen Mogris and Astolfo, who we would sometimes accompany, and someone called Bradamante. Their attire and weapons are also distinct from what I could see of just those four. I couldn't find anything in common, and the pressure I felt just from being around those powerful fixers. The stark difference between me and them was something. I couldn't think much else. That's interesting that we're now learning about Charles's office, you know, the one that Roland used to work in. And I have to assume Renaud is in fact someone different and not Roland, like he wasn't playing around with his name or whatever. That is just someone else. Maybe it was, I don't know. I have no information there to go off of. Maybe Bayard's page will offer a bit more on that, but that's not a real theory on my part. I assume Renaud is in fact just someone else. We've heard of Astolfo. I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we have heard of Astolfo. I think he showed up in a cutscene, but other than that, this provides information that we haven't seen. A grade 1 office. Small number of elites, bodying all requests. They were rich as fuck. They had a captain. Was Roland the captain? He might have been. I think I've heard that he was. Bradamante, I don't know. And they were all distinct and different. Like, it wasn't as if they followed a theme. They were all the protagonists of their own story, basically. You know, you get the impression. The Bayard itself, what an office. I'm hoping Bayard himself has something to say about it. This wasn't always the prim and proper office of amenable fixers that it is now. It was the complete opposite, actually, full of uncontrollable punks. I tried to gather the rascals in one place and lead them, but it never worked out smoothly. It was a ragtag band of people without a place to call home, like rats. So I got my frustration off my chest when I met my old friend Morgie. Oh, maybe you're more familiar with the name Maugris. Anyway, after hearing my ramblings, they said that there's someone in their office who would be perfect for the job, and I took the offer since I didn't have any better ideas. That someone was Renaud. Hearing a lot about this guy. At first I didn't expect that spring chicken to be able to do much, but I was surprised to see that he only needed a week to convince everyone. For a guy who looked much younger than me, he had both power and smarts to boast. He had a way with words that persuaded some, and for those that wouldn't listen, he'd settle with a contest of strength like in some part of the back streets. Back then I was kind of jealous seeing Renaud handle something that I struggled with like it was nothing, but now I've accepted that he's the better man. I know that I wouldn't have managed to do it myself, but I could have booed him out like a stubborn old man, but I have better things to keep than my pride. It's interesting because they've kind of got... I mean, like, Bayard himself has kind of got almost a bit of a Celtic vibe going to it with him. He's got that cloak and he's got that massive great spear, so I guess it's not surprising that they kind of lent into that old idea where they're a bit unruly, because back way back when the Celts were barbarians, much like the Britons were. Yeah, very cool office. Who is Renaud? Is it... I'm just surprised to see them come up twice, and it's someone we've never fucking heard of before. It feels like they should be someone we would know about in any way, shape, or form, or they're just saying they're planting the seeds for future, future games. They'll be like, oh, this is Renaud, you've all heard about him, here he is now, he's shown up. I don't know, but interesting. Well, that's all of the others. There's a lot of them there. Let's move on. Lure Association is a battle-oriented fixed association specializing in all-out combat. We receive requests from wings and fight great battles for them. Some may see the Lure's fighting style as old-fashioned, but we get frequent requests from those who want strong-willed and determined warriors. Most requests that come our way aren't complicated. 9 out of 10 are simply resolved by marching towards enemies and defeating them in battle. It doesn't require specific strategies or certain personnel. We're the Lure, the association that solely exists for war. That doesn't mean war is the only type of request we accept. After all, a fixer is free to take any request. The catch is that all requests must be reported to the Hunter Association after you deal with them. The report must include the details of the request, the client's info, how the case was resolved, and any other relevant information. Once the report has been submitted, Hunter Association will assess the performance of the office and its fixers and evaluate them for promotion or demotion. That's how the grades of officers and fixers are updated. Therefore, a fixer's grade doesn't necessarily correlate with strength. One last thing I'd like to add is that there is a line fixers shouldn't cross. A fixer may advertise themselves or their office to get more requests, but they should not threaten people to give requests to them. This is an area handled by the Hunter Association and UFI Association, a specialist in dealings and transactions. Of course, associations shouldn't have to worry about running out of requests in the first place. So yeah, the Lure just war. They're all about war. Big fights, dynasty warriors all over the goddamn place. They seem to be good at it. They presented me with some of the harder challenges when I first started Star of the City, I think, because they just fought so hard and got stronger and stronger, and the burn combined with cards that raise their emotion levels quickly. They seem to get a lot of bonuses. Very tough, very good cards. I was using Lure shit right up until the end. They're fantastic. The Lure is an association that specializes in warfare. We work for the single goal of victory. However, victory isn't necessarily won in battle. The ideal course of action begins by identifying the reason the enemy intends to fight in the first place. Next, we break the enemy's will. Only then will we launch an attack on enemy forces. Even when war is inevitable, we mustn't hope for victory after starting the war. Secure a path to victory before engaging in warfare. The Lure engages in battles that are already won, with a strategy that is fated to lead us to triumph. We face enemies that are fated to lose. In other words, we don't participate in a war that cannot be won. Blindly charging into the fray isn't always the path to victory, and while strategizing allows you to look ahead and see where victory lies, it doesn't ensure that you will reach it. Therefore, it's crucial to assess the strength of the ally and the condition of the enemy before you determine if you should advance or retreat. It's up to the director of each section, our leaders basically, to decide what to prioritize and what to discard. For instance, Director Lowell is extremely cautious. He's not hesitant to retreat and reorganize his forces if there's a slight disadvantage. On the other hand, Director Zhao tends to push forward as long as there is an opportunity to count on, but she isn't reckless about it. She designs elaborate strategies that will overcome the odds. Director Lowell's choices aren't always wise, and Director Zhao's choices don't always result in a smooth victory, but the two work their hardest within their abilities. So I gotta be honest, actually, my number one waifu in this game is Cecil. I really like her, she's really cool. And her and Mai's fighting styles are fantastic. I love them. Tishan Kao is amazing. I use that card even when it's not a good idea because I love it so much. In fact, I know I keep bringing it up, but it's because it's what's on my mind a lot at the moment. In terms of the series I'm doing, I did want to play around with having a pure Lure burn-based pie, obviously using the Floor of History because who the fuck else would you use, to just see how devastating you can make that. But I think maybe more specifically, I'd like to see if I could specialize into making decks that just turn Tishan Kao into something devastating, which is difficult because it's a block. Let me have a look. I actually can't remember Tishan Kao right now. Yeah, Tishan Kao, it's a pierce, a blunt, with a pierce counter die. That's quite difficult to actually spec into. Not impossible at all, but a little tricky to like specifically build into that. Two different types of damage. It's not singular strike. It does some burn, yeah, so you can spec burn for it, but honestly, I think if you wanted to make Tishan Kao work, the key point would be to make sure that first dice is as strong as possible, because the second dice is almost guaranteed to hit, barring certain circumstances where you're up against something really powerful, but that first die tends to fail. Tishan Kao is not a great card, I just love it. And that's what I'd love to spec into. I'll have to try that at some point, because I love that card, and I did my best to try and make it work throughout the series. But I love Cecil. She's cute, and that moment where it's like she spills the fact that Lowell's planning something special for his anniversary with Zhao was funny. Her and Mai are both brilliant. I love both of them. It's a shame we didn't get more time with them, to be honest. And like, we got plenty of time with Lure Association, but I would have loved more time with Lure Association because they had some of the best characters in the game. They're all fantastic. They're all really cool as well. I love them all. They're all brilliant. Outside of weapons and martial arts, the most important thing that provides us with protection is our clothing. It might look like a fancy suit with golden decorations at first glance, but you know how a fixer's attire is no ordinary clothing. It's mandatory for people working in relatively higher sections to wear clothing adorned with the Moonlight Stone, N-Corp Singularity. Of course, the Lure doesn't have the exclusive right to use it, so you can see it on the clothes of other Fixers and Syndicate members too. The Moonlight Stone emits a golden glint, and you can either gild your clothes with it or make ornaments out of it. The Moonlight Stone mitigates or shuts off psychological infliction induced from all kinds of mental attacks, pressure, interference, and all that, whether it's caused by seeing, hearing, or feeling something, or a direct assault to the mind. Although I don't really know how the stone works, they said it amplifies a single purpose or thought, making people forget the mental pain coming from outside, or fortifying the mind as it's surrounded with a giant barrier. It's all thanks to this clothing that we didn't panic when we saw the crying children. A distortion. So the Moonlight Stone, I remember hearing about that and being confused, and it never really came up again, but I wonder, possibly, pure hypothetical here, but could the Moonlight Stone have contributed to why Zhao manifested instead of distorted? Now, I don't want to downplay her mental strength, right? She was a strong lady in more ways than one, just a strong person in general. But could the Moonlight Stone have helped her counter the voices as work? You know, because they were trying to talk her down a certain path, and maybe the Moonlight Stone helped, not necessarily was the reason, but helped to keep her focused. Then again, it's clear if that was even a factor, it's clear it wasn't working too well because she was already extremely grief-stricken over Lowell's death. So, I mean, it shows that grief was more powerful than that, so it shows how much anguish she was in and how much worse maybe it would have been if she didn't have the Moonlight Stone, but it's interesting. I knew nothing about that prior to now. Zhao was a cold person who wouldn't easily show her feelings. Even though the lure consists of those who only face forward and never express any emotion in battle, Zhao was especially hard-edged above the rest. I came to wonder if she was capable of possessing emotions at all. Her tone was dry, in the most upsetting situations, and she seemed apathetic to the loss of several colleagues, never showing her emotions in response to anything, but thoroughly looking after herself. That was my impression of Zhao. I thought the path Zhao was walking was completely different from mine. We disagreed on every aspect, from strategies to personalities. I thought my relationship with her would stay a formal relation between two co-working directors of an association. I don't remember when and how we got so close to each other. I couldn't be bothered to push away the person who naturally came to my side. We started spending more time together outside of work. People intersect one another somehow. Though I have no clue how our paths managed to converge or about the paths led them to cross, one thing I can say for certain is that our relationship isn't a superficial bond between two directors. We need each other because we cherish each other, not the other way around. Can you really call it love if you only cherish your significant other because you need something out of them? At the very least, I don't think of Zhao as an object of exploitation nor gratification. However, I know that preaching love is utterly meaningless in this city. A fixer should never be carried away by emotion. I know well that a person in a position as high as mine should be extra careful. I've seen countless fixers who brought private matters to the official grounds only to meet undesirable results. The moment you get swayed by something you cherish, you lose yourself, you neglect your own safety. When a human, a creature that always puts itself above all else, loses their edge because of what they hold dear, and places higher priority on it than their own life, the consequences will be grim in any case. Knowing this, I decided to remind ourselves of one thing when we plighted our troth. Whatever happens to each other, we won't put ourselves at risk. As I thought, Zhao agreed plainly and rightly. I could trust in Zhao, and I was glad to have this person as my lifelong partner. It was reassuring to know that Zhao wouldn't throw away her own life if I ever died. Focus on my own survival, even in a mortal peril. Perhaps my heart has grown stronger since I met her. Having her next to me was already a great help to me at that point. So yeah, they were not exactly opposites, but in many ways, Lowell and Zhao provided each other with balance. A yin to a yang, if you will, bringing us back to yin and yang from LoveCorp with the, Chinese theming on it, which is then once again shown here. These two brought each other balance, and, with Lowell gone, Zhao went off the fucking deep end, basically, because he basically kept her in check, and she would keep him in check. Presumably, he would fucking lose it as well if she went, I can only assume, because both of them are very calm and rational people, while the other one is alive, so presumably once one of them goes, the other fucking loses it. I feel like something fun that Project Moon could have done, maybe, I don't know, just as like little, not even DLC as such, but as little like expanded content, is I think they should have set up some dream matches, like as extra challenges, something they could, assign a small team to, and it's like every so often just put out like a dream match or a special encounter of some kind, and one of them I think would have been really cool would be to fight Lowell and Zhao at the same time. Even if they're not accompanied by other fixers, just the two of them as a boss fight. You can bring Iron Lotus back for it, the track still fits, you can still work with it. I think that would be really interesting, and I feel like there are some others that you could go with here. Like, you could have them for various stages of the game and maybe limit the player to using specific levels of cards. Like, for instance, you could have Streetlight paired up with Isadora and Julia. Get Mars, Lulu, San, Julia, and Isadora. And when you set up these little dream matches, you could have them... You could give them different abilities for it, basically, like different things where they all play off of each other. You could almost use it to set up like hard challenges for each stage of the game, like ultimate challenges for those stages. I got nothing for Urban Myth other than that, to be honest. Canard, even less so. But there are things you can do, and you wouldn't have to do one for each, but there are various opportunities that you could play upon. Have the Musicians of Bremen be led by the actual Musicians of Bremen. That could be a thing, that could be quite interesting. Dawn Office with Manifested Ego Philip. Once again, that could be a thing. 8 o'clock circus with Oswald and the rest of the ensemble who can make it. Maybe make it a multi-stage fight, I don't know, you can do something with that. These are just idle ideas, but they're thoughts. Naturally, you could have a sheer association one where they're not injured. They're just straight up at full power and just have the player try and deal with that, but that might not be suited to Urban Nightmare. You might want to pop that up to Star of the Sea, perhaps, to give the player a fair chance. But I think that'd be really cool if they just put out little dream matches like that, little challenges to, because, you know, everyone's already figured out 1,000,001 decks that break this game over their goddamn knee. Throwing in stuff like that would be interesting, and like, not rushed either, so take the time to balance the fights and consider them carefully and make them challenges without being weirdly designed or frustrating. There's stuff you could go with there, because it would be very easy to make Zhao very frustrating because all that burn is serious business, and I'm lucky I beat her on my first try. I could see that going way, way worse. I've never fought her again since. I bet I'd fucking lose. Just saying. The thumb is the most cultivated and humane of the 5 fingers. Just be polite and know to respect others. But then, why did the thumb top the list of syndicates one would never want to get involved with in the survey for fixes conducted by the Hana Association in spite of such good manners? The reason is simple. Hierarchy is absolute for the thumb. To us, it's as natural as the fact of nature that spilt blood only flows downwards, not up. One is expected to give unconditional obedience to a higher authority. That's where the relative courteousness of the thumb comes from. It's funny to consider that, most cultivated and humane of the 5 fingers, because on the surface you might assume the index, but then of course once you learn about the prescripts, it gets a little iffy. Then again, this is also a thumb member telling us that the thumb is the most cultivated and humane, so maybe take it with a pinch of salt. It's hard to say. They are cultivated and they are humane in a sense. It's just when you defy orders that things go wrong. Also, we have to consider the fact that this is the phrases cultivated and humane in the context of the city. This is not a nice place, right? So it does actually bear some fruit. It does carry some weight, if only a little. But yeah, those punishments are rough. They screwed Yan up hard before they went on to the library, although that wasn't an internal matter, that was fighting an opponent. But still, it's there, it counts. Even in a powerful syndicate, weaklings exist. Cowardice can surface among the strong, and chaos can ensue from the most faultless rules. Not everyone in the thumb can abide the rules without a slip-up. What happens when one violates the rules? If someone is trying to disrupt the hierarchy, they'll be purged in a few days. It doesn't matter if it's a member of the syndicate or an outsider, every person must abide by the rules. The degree of violation is irrelevant. That doesn't decide the weight of the purge. The one thing that matters the most is that they showed insolence. The lesson is marked with blood so that no one dares to break this rule again. That's the most important one. It might seem like nitpicking, but there's one basic principle to remember. Don't get on the nerves of your superior. It's such an elementary part of the basic decencies for human relationships, yet so many people seem to be oblivious of this. This person has been brainwashed hard by the thumb. Extremely hard. This person is all in on the philosophies and has internalized them perfectly and is eager to act upon them when it is necessary. Dennis is kind of a badass. We don't get to see a lot of them, which is a shame, but surprisingly intimidating, actually. Just their... I don't know what you'd call it, but like single-minded devotion to the thumb. Nothing else matters to them at all, and it is unnerving. The thumb's chain of command is simple. Obey the orders issued by your superior unconditionally and do not question the intentions of your superior. Kill if you're told to kill and die if you're told to die. You cannot defy the orders no matter how baffling it may seem. Those who violate them are punished on the spot. Even if the order is made by someone whose rank is only one step higher than yours, you're still obligated to follow it. There's nothing you can do about it, unless another person whose position in the pecking order is even higher than your commander's decides to step in and take your side. There is one exception, however. It's when a high-ranking individual temporarily devolves their power to a subordinate of theirs. Usually this occurs if they have urgent business that prevents them from joining a meeting, or when they need their peer to know something that the subordinate can explain more professionally. It's still a rare occurrence even then. No one transfers their authority for the fun of simulated uprising or other trivial reasons. That's how significant the hierarchy is to us. Yeah, transferring authority would be risky as well, because if you transferred your authority to a subordinate who went to a meeting, who then spoke up against the, the leaders, the capos and whatever, not only would they obviously get bodied, as is the standard for the thumb, but I'm pretty sure that would be considered your fault, so you would also be bodied, and most of your family would also be bodied. So, yeah, risk. A lot of risk. You can't afford to take those kinds of risks. You can't afford to trust other people to not fuck up, basically. But it's interesting along these lines because this is very reminiscent of the Index, just presented in a different manner. Those who violate them are punished on the spot, even if the order is made by someone whose rank is only one step higher than yours. You cannot defy the orders no matter how baffling it may seem. Don't question them, just do them, much like the Index. It's not your place to question the prescript, you carry out the prescript or you suffer the consequences. So these two sides, despite being at war, are actually extremely similar, and also extremely different. It's strange. The thumb uses various types of bullets. We pick the right ammo for the right situation, but as you can guess, the price of those bullets is a serious drawback. Not even the thumb, one of the 5 fingers sitting at the apex of the backstreets, can just waste bullets willy-nilly. That's how costly it gets. You can't get trigger happy. Because of that, the thumb fight with the bayonet and the buttstock of their guns most of the time, and only fire bullets when it's absolutely necessary. The buttstock is built to be solid enough to crush most things to a pulp, and the bayonet is pretty handy as a sword. Some just stick to raw strength though, like our boy Boris, who knew that the biggest, most powerful guns he had available to him were Dexter and Sinister, his left and right hand. Dude punches like an absolute machine. Discipline is one of my favoritist cards in the whole game. Like, it is very much tied with Tishan Kao, probably slightly ahead of Tishan Kao to be honest, because it is just so fucking cool. It's also one of the most frustrating cards in the game, as far as I'm concerned, because it does not benefit with power gain or loss. Now, good, you can stop your opponent from powering up, very nice, but oh god, I just want to buff that card. I just want to buff it. I just want it to do an ungodly amount of damage. That's all I want. Now, you can make it do an ungodly amount of damage. That's not hard. You just go into your passives and equip a bunch of shit that provides extra stagger damage and what have you and go nuts with that die rolled 3 times modifier at the end. Pretty easy to do, and with the 2 block die, any combat page that your opponent's using that has 1 or 2 die on it, you can just tank or deflect with the block die and then you get to go in and do damage. But oh god, I just wish I could give it more power. But then again, there's a lot you can work with here. So the final hit, this die is rolled 3 times. Looking at it, it just occurred to me, improv drumming. That would inflict, after a successful blunt attack, 3 fragile to around, like, well, fragile thrown around to either 3 random people or 1 person, whatever. 3 instances of that, which is actually quite cool. And like, it may go well with Nay Woof Woof Bok as well, and I think, didn't they have something else along these lines as well? The way earlier fucking guys, yeah, Meow. Not that one. Yeah, Moo Moo, on successful blunt attack, deal 1 to 2 bonus damage to target, so in total that would be like an extra 3 to 6 bonus damage to the target, because you'll be hitting them 3 times with that blunt hit. And then there are other things you can get that can buff blunt damage, I'm sure. Like, I can't be bothered to look through here now, but yeah, there are other things you can get. So you can make Discipline exceptionally powerful, and I might want to try and lean into that at some point, but yeah, fun card. I just wish I could buff it. I really, really, really do. I wish I could. Well, you can, technically. Technically, you can. You can use, where is it? Where is it? Where are you? Yeah, you can use the 12 fixes, because the 12 fixes does not boost power, it boosts roll values. It's specifically phrased to be different. So you throw the 12 fixes in there, and then a bunch of stuff to boost the power of Discipline, and pretty much as long as you can ensure that you're going up against either a 2 or 1 hit attack, or you're one-sided attacking them, you can do an ungodly amount of damage. Interesting thoughts for the future. Always nice to have more things I can potentially do for that stupid series I've made. Capo de Capi, Godfather, Soto Capo, Underboss, Capo, Captain, and Soldato, Soldier, Goodfella. The thumb is divided into these 4 echelons. This hierarchical structure is still effective outside of the Syndicate. For example, a common fixer is comparable to a Soldato, an associate fixer to a Capo, a board member of a wing to a Soto Capo. This is how the hierarchy is to be interpreted. No outsider is exempt from this rule, no matter how you usually behave. You must remember your place and respect our rules when you're dealing with the thumb. If a young, oblivious fixer walks up to a capo and speaks to them, that poor Picciotto will be rolling in the street the next day with his jaw and teeth missing. On the other hand, someone with the right level of authority or person of a higher class would be a different story. If a person on the same echelon as ours were to approach us, we gladly greet them and hear what they have to say with an open mind. Conversations with them are to be conducted with courtesy and decorum. Furthermore, if the person you're dealing with stands on a higher echelon than yours, they must be treated with utmost devotion and delicacy. Such is the rule of ours, and the respect to their position. Don't be too bitter over it. Indeed, class is earned, not given for free. It's only right to give it the respect it deserves. So this is why when they arrived at, the library, Kalo, it's why he was basically submissive to Angela upon arriving, because it was like, well, she is, in the grand scheme of things, a higher rank than me, so I have to show respect. And he did show respect. Before he busted into the place and tried to take us down. Kalo is pretty fucking cool, to be honest, and his combat page is his key page. I was using his key page until the end of the game. It's exceptionally good. The thumb stuff in general is fantastic, actually. Finally getting an honest-to-God reliable ranged build was great. And it proved very useful for like Yui and Lorelei and Hotshot, like all three of those guys made excessive use of these mechanics. The ammunition mechanic is brilliant and you can do a lot with it. Very, very good stuff. And the thumb themselves are just really cool. The suits, the coats, like the focus on guns, the focus on using guns as melee weapons. They gave a guy brass knuckles because you knew you had to. Absolute solid part of the game, these guys. Very, very, very good. I was very happy with them. They were tough fighters, but not too hard. Characters were intimidating and tough and interesting, just all around. I didn't love them as much as the lure. I think the lure remained one of the absolute highlights of Star of the City. And that says a lot for the lure because there are a lot of highlights in the Star of the City section, but these guys were great, truly. These guys were really good. And everything about them is really interesting. Even if they are just the Mafia. But, you know, they managed to make that cool. And that's pretty neat. That's all I've got time for today, ladies and gentlemen. I could keep going. But, the main reason I want to make sure to split this one up properly is that, like, yeah, I could keep going, but I would start to lose energy after a while. And we would really, like, the discussion, the conjecture, the providing thoughts on these different characters and these topics they provoke and stuff like that would start to drop off hard. I'd literally just be going through these pages, just go, Brut done, Brut done, Brut done, no thoughts, no opinions, done, 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 you're just rushing through them. And I think a lot of the essence of this show, as it were, the book club, is to talk about these things and to discuss them and to express opinions and views and thoughts, and then people in the comments either agree, disagree, or correct me if I'm wrong on certain things, and then my knowledge of the game has been heightened because people have been like, well, no, Foreman, that's not actually what that is, it's actually this, and I'm like, oh, cool, alright, well, now I know. And you guys can do that freely now because there's no spoilers left, which is nice. Yeah, no, this is the essence of the show. It's not just reading these, it's talking about them. And that's why I'm cutting it here, so that we can do the rest later. And even then, next time's going to be a rough one, but I think this is a comfortable place to stop this one. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. We're getting there, bit by bit. Special thanks to Beep, Adash Sanjeev, Alkir, Honeydew Corporation, Sweet Baby Red, MB Alias, Lord Scullington, Jessicitty, Plutonium Pie, Dreamer Ghost, Lepalolubai, K-Bub, Magic Owl, The Frostbite, Monsoon, Sir World, Jumping with Joy, Warmasoku, SCP-106A, Namad, and Kenny T800 for supporting me on Patreon. Thank you so much, guys, and thank you all so much for watching. These are good. I like doing these, and I think it's key, actually, that I keep them a little short, because it maintains my interest in them, because when I really burn myself out by just trying to read through as many as possible, they get a little dull. So, and plus it's not the end of the world if I perhaps have some videos that aren't 2 or 3 hours long, you know. I think everyone might prefer that a little bit, just a little bit, because it's easier to keep on top of these when they aren't 3 hours long. And editing them is also less painful when they're not 3 hours long. But I don't mind putting in the work when I have to, but it's nice to have these be a bit more relaxed. That's all I got time for. Whatever happens next time, and you know what's going to happen next time, it's the rest of this. It's Kane Office, Blue Reverberation, Index Proxies, Lure Association 1, The Red Mist, Arcor, Purple Tear, Zhao, and Yan. There's quite a lot here, actually, and it's going to be rough. But when we do that, I hope I see you there. Toodles, goodbye.